I am being tempted by Games Workshop, and I don't like it, and I'm not having it. So Warhammer put an article out showing a few more units for Legions Imperialis, and so we know what is on the way along with that box, what they talked about before, and it's tempting me. It's actually tempting me, even though I've stated quite a few times. For some reason, the lights are dying. Why are the lights dying? Why is that red? That shouldn't be red. That should all be the same colour. And it's broken down there as well. Come on. Anyway, that was totally irrelevant. I just got distracted. Warcom have shown off some new stuff for Legions Imperialis, the new but totally not new version of Epic, and I said when it was revealed first time round that it's not really my thing, right? There's aspects to it I really like the idea of. I love tanks. I'm a big fan of tanks. I like me some tanks. I'm working on some tanks right now, in fact. The other day, I finished putting together. Look, it's just an executioner with 2 plasma cannons and an executioner plasma cannon. Except I wanted to put 2 plasma cannons on it, so one of those counts as the sponsored ones. Alright, that's just how it works. I like me some tanks. I've got quite a few of them. I also like me some dreadnoughts. I'm a big fan of dreadnoughts. I have, in my time, owned 1 or 2 dreadnoughts at a time. There's like 6 right there. And you can forgive me getting excited about potentially having loads of baby tanks. But I thought I was getting away with it slightly because I thought, well, just baby tanks isn't going to be enough to actually, draw me in. The whole Legions Imperialis thing, there's going to be people who love that, and I know a lot of people are excited for it. But overall, that scale of wargaming just isn't something that I'm massively, drawn to. But there are tiny tanks, and there are tiny contemptors. Except now there's more than just tiny tanks and tiny contemptors to draw me in, because they've only gone and shown off tiny Leviathans and tiny Deredeos as well. And this is where things become unfair for me, and where I start to feel as though I'm being specifically targeted, even though that's definitely not true, because there is another box that's going to be alongside the first box that they've announced, and that is a fire support box. A Legions Astartes support box, in fact. And as you can see, we have little teeny baby Deredeos and little tiny baby Leviathans. The rest of it's fine. Rapier support platforms or whatever, and some just, weapons platforms. Whatever. Those, don't care about those. Not interested. Well, kind of interested because they're that platform is already like a little tiny tank, and this is like an even smaller version of the little tiny tank. It's not actually a tank, it's just a weapons platform, but you know what I mean. But the dreadnoughts, oh no. Because now what they've done is they have made a tiny version of the Contemptor, which is an absolute classic, love the Contemptor, and a tiny version of the Leviathan, which is my favourite dreadnought that they do. I love the Leviathan. The Leviathan is fantastic. If I could justify having 100 of them, I definitely would, because they're brilliant and I can't get enough. And now there's little teeny ones. And do you know how long I've persuaded myself not to buy a Deredeo for? Do you know how long? A long time. A very long time. I've always wanted to get one, but the thing is, I've always looked at it and gone, but the thing is, I just don't like it as much as the Leviathan, and it kind of ties with the Contemptor. And the thing is, I could spend all that money on that resin, but I could also just buy another one of the thing I really like, even though at the time I think I had 3 or 4 Leviathans. Too many. But the thing is, how am I supposed to resist little wee baby versions of them? How am I supposed to resist this? There's now a possibility of running, I don't know how many tanks and how many dreadnoughts. Probably not against anyone who is a stranger. It would have to be friends only, because, you tell me, would you be happy to rock up for a game of Legions Imperialis and your opponent, who you'd never met before, showed up with only tanks and dreadnoughts? Would you be happy with that? Is it even going to be supported in the rules? Probably not. I'm guessing that's not going to be a thing. Let's face it, the fun thing about 10th so far, at least for me anyway, is that you can totally legitimately run a list that is just, dreadnoughts of the Redemptor chassis variety and the Lion, and you can have that and call it Dad's Army, which is what I've already started building. Terrible. But this would that even be a thing that people want to see? I don't know. I don't know that people want to play against that, but from a collecting standpoint, from just a kind of enjoying having them and painting them and making them all look a little bit different, it's getting hard. It's getting hard to resist. It is really tugging on that little part of my kind of hobby brain where I'm like, I just like those models so much. And the thing is, yes, they are a lot smaller. They're a lot tinier. They're little wee lads, but they still look like what they should look like. Obviously, the detail isn't as good. It can't be. It can't be at that scale. It's impossible. But they still do look pretty damn good to my eye. I mean, yeah, the detail is a little bit more soft. It's not quite as sharp and crisp as it would be at full scale, but it's still just a Leviathan. It's still just Leviathan, and that is still just a Deredeo, and they look fantastic, and they're so tiny and infinitely collectible. And it's a problem, right? It's a problem. I know it's a problem. I know it's a me issue. I know I've got to be stronger than this, right? What you got to consider, though, is that in front of me on this desk are 4 unpainted Leman Russes. Behind me are 3 painted Leman Russes and a Baneblade. And a Vulture, but that's not a tank. And there's also 2 more Leman Russes up there. And somewhere in this house, I don't know where, because it's not over there, is a Rogel Dawn tank. And that is becoming a actual functional army that makes sense and would have been playable anyway. But behind me is also a bunch of Dreadnoughts. After I already sold the first lot of Dreadnoughts I had. I already had a Dreadnought army. I had like 4,000 points or something of them. 3,500? Something like that. And then I sold that. And then somehow I've ended up with loads of them again, despite the fact that I never even intended to in the first place. And now that I look over, actually, there is still a Redemptor over there in the box. It's a problem. I'm aware it's a problem. It's a problem when it comes to tanks. It's a problem when it comes to mechanized robots, just mech stuff in general. And now they're showing me these. They're just showing me more stuff that, frankly, I appear to have very little will to resist. It's clearly a personal issue. It's a me problem. It's not a them problem. They're not doing it intentionally. Well, I mean, they do everything intentionally when it comes to trying to get people to buy their stuff, but you know what I mean? But even though that scale of wargaming doesn't appeal to me as much, even though it feels like much more of a numbers game than, say, like 40k, because, you know, you've got loads of little bases of infantry, and the scale of it is way different, the size of the battle is totally different. Even though it's not something that I feel drawn to, I still feel drawn to the tiny tanks and the tiny Dreadnoughts. And I was okay resisting the tiny Dreadnoughts until they decided to include more of them, chiefly the one that I like the most. And I don't want to say right now that I'll probably end up giving in and end up with a bunch of tiny Leviathans and tiny Redemptors and tiny Contemptors, but the possibility exists in a much more strong way than I would hope that it did. Mostly just because they exist and they've shown them to me, which says a lot about my poor impulse control more than anything else. My question for you is, are you tempted by this yet? Is this getting you excited? Are you interested? Are you only going to be interested if they introduce Xenos stuff, which is a whole video that we still need to do? Or do you think you're being drawn in by the tiny stompy lads as well? Let me know in the comments down below. In the meantime, feel free to click all the things. That was a bad pronunciation of meantime. Click all the stuff. Check out YouTube memberships. Patreon. That'd be nice. You can like the video if you want to. If you want. It's totally up to you. And yeah, I'll see you for the next one probably. Oh, Element Games affiliate link. These outros are getting worse every single time.